Good afternoon. Today's talk will be a general introductory talk on Gulliver's Travels. Now, Gulliver's Travels was written between the years 1721 to 1725, with book 3 of the novel written last, and the novel was published in 1726 by a publisher named Benjamin Motte. It was a great success, as Swift's friend John Gay reported, and I quote him. He said that the novel was universally read from the Cabinet Council to the nursery, quickly entering into the popular folklore, as it were, with some of the impact of a modern soap opera in creating a make believe world. Gulliver's Travels was written as a parody of travel books, which were very popular at that time, a genre in which Swift was well read. Swift owned the great multi-volume travel compendia of Richard Hakluyt and Samuel Purchas, and wrote to his friend Vanessa Van Hombre in 1722 that he had been reading, and he said, "I know not how many diverting books of history and travels," unquote. And adding to a friend, another friend, a few days later, that the travel books had an abundance of trash. The travel book background forms the outward armature or framework of a very deep satirical exploration of the human mind and living in Gulliver's Travels. Behind the novel lies a lifetime of reading in the works of classical and Renaissance ethnographers, maybe from Herodotus and Pliny to Montaigne, and a lively interest in the culture, society, and politics of human beings, both in his history and in his own time. Gulliver's Travels essentially belongs to a species of parody which is not mainly concerned with the books it is ostensibly mimicking, but uses the medium of parody to explore matters of more central and, at a deeper level, more substantial human import. It purports to be a philosophical response to definitions of man as a rational animal. It explored concepts which were dangerous in Swift's time in terms of its political allusions as well as obvious shocks to polite sensibilities, and Swift claimed that the publisher Motte had even refined, as it were, the original text that he wrote and sanitized his text by omitting out obvious pieces of information which might have offended the polite sensibility of the time. Some corrections were made by the publisher in a second edition, which was published in 1727, but when the work was included in volume 3 of the edition of Swift's works in 1735 by the Dublin publisher George Faulkner, it included further revisions, some of them not intended, in the earlier edition of 1726. There was some mystification over Swift's role in the 1735 edition, from which Swift also pretended to keep perhaps a safe distance, though why did he wish to keep that distance from the 1735 edition is still not clear to us. The book as we know today, the novel Gulliver's Travels, it first appeared on 28 October 1726 with the title Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World, purportedly written by Lemuel Gulliver, first a surgeon and then a captain of several ships. There was no overt sign of Swift's authorship. The title of Gulliver's Travels, by which the book is nowadays universally known, is a popular piece of shorthand with no formal authority, though Swift was referring coyly perhaps to, and I quote him, a book called Gulliver's Travels, unquote, as early as November 1726. So Gulliver's Travels, as we read the text, it's apparently clear to us that it's a novel which is unlike the novel, for example, of Charles Dickens or Conrad or Faulkner, but it is again uh, having little similarity with the novels that were written in Swift's own time. For example, the novels of Defoe or Richardson or even Fielding, which we obviously agree to call as novels, though those were the early days of English novel writing. Swift would not have been a willing practitioner of realism or narrative immediacy, which was practiced or which was rather the hallmark of both Defoe and Richardson. The lifelike unfolding of a personal story was perhaps, and it's clear that it's not his purpose in Gulliver's Travels, because such realism of notation that was there in Defoe or Richardson or even Fielding was something that Swift never cared while he was writing Gulliver's Travels. What he was essentially wanting to put into the framework of the travel writing is essentially a satirical exposure rather than the building of a fictional illusion with some form of an authentic allegiance to both incidents, mannerisms, or consequences of interactions with the socio-cultural framework of his time. His progression as a novelist, as we know it today, stands entirely on his ability to depart from the norm, as it were, to put into the framework of travel writing a vicious satire against mankind, at least some aspects of mankind, which some of his contemporary novelists did not take care of or did not put into their novels when they wrote them. Swift's Gulliver's Travels essentially, therefore, is a work which is both topical, framed in time, Swift's time, as well as it is a work which can be read and reread or read and reinterpreted in our context as well. We can easily bring in ideas of colonial interpretation or a post colonial interpretation of Gulliver's Travels. We can bring in ideas of cultural studies into the text, the aspects of multiculturalism, which is so very apparent in books 1 and 2 of Gulliver's Travels, how human society tries to accept or does not accept, whatever be it, cultural nuances which are different from their own nuances, and so on. So essentially, Gulliver's Travels is both a dated novel as well as a contemporary novel, because most of us do relate to Gulliver's Travels in some form or the other than the obvious import of the novel as some form of a fictional make believe writing. So, this is the introductory talk that I had to give you on Gulliver's Travels as a novel. In my next talk, we'll be going specifically to Book 1, which is titled A Voyage to Lilliput. Thank you.